Whenever you're ready,
Okay,
sir.
hi. My
Thank
name is
you.
Dave, and I'm a member of Acorn. I'll first start off by saying that I wish Acorn never had to exist. In a perfect world, Acorn would not be needed. We are far from that world. I'm so grateful for the advocacy group. So, my entire building was issued an N13 that never went to the landlord-tenant board. It was a blatant attempt to bully the tenants into leaving or paying market rent prices for their rent-controlled apartments. They can try to intimidate me, but that's fine. But when you start intimidating senior women and people on fixed income, I draw the line there. This particular senior woman wanted to be here, but she had mobility issues which prevented her from coming today. That's why I am here, to make my voice heard and to speak on her and my neighbor's behalf. The N13 was issued by the landlord to the 120 residents of my building, and this caused undue stress over a long period of time for all of the tenants. I want to reiterate that N13 never went to the landlord-tenant board. The paltry cash for keys that they offered wouldn't even cover the costs of moving and first and last month's rent at market value. They expected us to just pack up all of our belongings and move during a housing crisis so they could change some cupboards and install new floors. I had started to look for other apartments during this time, and the only place within my price range were rooms for rent. Going from a bachelor to a room for rent, just, it didn't sit well for me. Thankfully, Acorn came in, hosted actions, educated the residents of my building about our rights. As a result, many of the tenants held firm and we kept our homes. I believe it was never about the renovations, but a way to squeeze tenants who had rent-controlled units. Acorn shouldn't be relied upon to help every tenant in the city of Ottawa. I am grateful Acorn helped me, so I look to you, the city of Ottawa, to make a renoviction bylaw that is strong and will protect the people that live here. We can't have landlords that threaten tenants with N13s anytime they want more money. I would not wish the stress of having an N13 delivered to anyone. Please work closely with Acorn. They have experience with most tenants that have been issued N13s that have not been tracked with the landlord-tenant board, and they can give recommendations for strong bylaws that protect marginalized residents. I also urge the city to look towards Hamilton's bylaw as a guide on how we can make our city the best it can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate the presentation. There's a question for you from Councillor Troster.
Hi, Dave. Thank you so much for being here. So that's really interesting because if I look at the data that came back from staff about, from the landlord-tenant board, there was an 800% increase in N13s between 2010 and 2023, but that only represented 32. So what you're telling me is your building, there were 120 apartments and they were all told
residents,
to leave.
yes.
Okay. So most people chose to leave and take the cash for keys offer. Why? Why do you think they didn't go back to the board or?
I would say about 45% of the tenants left. Why they took the cash for keys, I don't know. They were offering $5,000, just the cost of moving, and then first and last month's rent, and you've got plus one extra month of rent, and that $5,000 is done.
Did you see those rental listings when they went back up after those renovations were done? Do you know what the price difference was?
Yeah, it was pretty much market rent, and a lot of the tenants there were under rent control. They were paying like half that rent.
Okay,
yeah.
So the rent doubled. And then did you see any evidence in those new units? Because I'm sure you probably saw the listings online. Of what actual renovations were made?
So, yeah, it was mostly cosmetic. There was no like structural, or it was just like new floors, new cabinets, and coat of paint.
So you think these are things that a tenant could live through or move out for a couple of days, but not have to completely vacate?
So the funny thing is, yeah, they could have done all of the renovations while the tenants were living there. They actually came into my apartment. I got a new patio door and a new patio window. They were in there for like, I was watching them the whole time. They were in there for maybe an hour. And they came in, old one out, new one in. And I'm just like, okay, thanks guys, bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's really helpful for us to understand that while this data is an indication of a trend, it absolutely doesn't capture all of the cases where there is that turnover in an apartment due to a rather cosmetic renovation, and an N13 may or may not be issued, but it's under the guise of renovations that people are being asked to leave. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Mr. Longshot, there is another question for you from Councillor Luloff.
Hey, thanks so much for coming today and for speaking about this. My first question was, would you have lived among the construction had they given you that option? I think you've answered that, yes, right?
Would they have left?
Like,
or,
would you have lived amongst the construction? So had they said, like, look, we want to replace your floors, we want to do your cabinets,
I
it's going
mean,
to be disruptive for a few days,
like, I mean, they've done like cockroach treatments and they get you to remove, just put everything to one side of the apartment. They come in, treat one side, and then you got to move everything back. I mean, it would have been a minor inconvenience,
Sure.
but to get a renovated unit at the same price, I mean, I'd absolutely undergo that.
Okay, great. And just like for edification, are you comfortable telling us who the landlord is?
So the problem is, the building was sold to a new landlord, and they did the renovations, and then the building was then sold to somebody else. So under the renovations, I don't know who the landlord was, but the current landlord is Sterling Karmer.
And they didn't issue the M13. It was the one before that, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Longchamp, thank you very much. Those are the questions for you. We'll move on to the next delegation, who is Debbie Staples.